Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. I've got to wait a little bit until somebody tells me that you can hear me. But who have we got in the chat? Oh, good grief, it's massively busy. Hello, Simon. Hello, Karen. Hello, Tish. Hello, Jamie. Who else have we got? Hello, Ignacio. Hello, Mike. I hope I'm not missing anybody. Hello, John. Hello, Tony. Wow, it's busy in here. Oh, even Mike's in here. That's excellent. And I've just been told you can hear me, which is even better. So we will get on. Thank you for that, Lady Patty. I like that name. That's good. Hello, Carol. And Catherine as well. Thank you very much. Right, we're live. So let's get on with it. We've got lots and lots and lots of calendars to make. So today we have creating a calendar in Affinity. This is the new version of Affinity. We are broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure you are receiving in 1080p. There is a cog in the lower right-hand corner. You need to choose the one with the flash on it, and that is the best quality. YouTube does do strange things. It has presented videos to me at 360, and it's taken me a couple of minutes to think that's a bit blurry. So do make sure that you're watching in full quality. While you're down there, there's a like button. I like the like button, but more importantly, YouTube likes the like button. So do contemplate hitting the like button. Right, if you don't know who I am, I'm Elaine Giles. I've been using Affinity since almost before I can remember, but certainly since the beta version of Affinity Designer in 2014. And I've used all of the Affinity apps every day since then. So what do we have today? We're going to create a calendar in Affinity, but it's going to be more than one calendar. We're going to do much more than that. So first of all, I'm going to show you the options that you've got for calendars, because there's more than one way of creating them. Then I'm going to show you using images to create calendars before we get it a little bit more complicated, more advanced, and we automatically add calendar days. Then I'm going to show you flexible ways of working with tables before we move on to the pièce de résistance of demos, which is making magic with stacked calendar tables. And finally, I'll show you how, after you've made all these calendars, you are able to brand them either for you personally, for your business. Maybe you want to print them out yourself. And then, if you hang around till the end, I have free assets for you. I have calendars and I have templates, multiple templates. And of course, there will be the Q&A. Now, with the Q&A, put questions into the live chat. If you've got questions afterwards, put them as a comment. But if you're putting your questions in the chat as we go, we will collect them ready for the Q&A at the end. If you can remember to put a Q at the beginning, it makes them a little bit easier to find to do that. Right, I have created a playlist on YouTube with all of our new Affinity content. You will find that on my channel. That is the QR code for it. At the moment, it's got the 3 sessions that we've already run, which was everything you need to know, creating your first layout, and deep diving data merge that we did last week. So the first one was really, in fact, it was 2 things. Don't know if everywhere's got Terry's Chocolate Moonlight chocolates, but half of them are light and half of them are dark. This gave you the theory of what Affinity had done and then moved on to the practice of what that means for you. Then we did a first layout. Now, last week, we deep dived data merge. We will not be looking at data merge today, although you can data merge a calendar. So yes, if you've got that question, yes, you can, but that's not what we're looking at today. But we did data merge last week, so you can watch that on demand. Right, we love to read the chat. Please keep it friendly in there. I'm not affiliated with Canva nor Affinity. I never have been, but I have been a customer of both for a long time. Right, so creating a calendar in Affinity. Right, the options you have for creating calendars are many and varied. Which ones you choose, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I'm going to make the best calendar ever, and that needs to be the most complicated, because the ultimate aim here is to make a calendar. And you're not going to be consuming that in terms of, well, probably not in a PDF on your desktop. You may have printed it out, you may have put it somewhere else. So getting the job done is the most important thing. Generally speaking, it's a sliding scale here. Because there are numerous ways to create calendars, The difference between them is the speed with which you can create them and how flexible those final calendars are. And it is a sliding scale. So in terms of difficulty, if you have images, it's really easy. Really easy. And it's fast. If you're using the numbering method that I will show you, it will take you a little bit longer. If you are using a table and customizing everything, that will take you by far the longest. However, there is another scale, which is flexibility. If you want to color code certain days and things, images, not your friend. Numbering gives you a little bit of an option or of a collection of options in terms of formatting, but tables give you the most flexibility. So we have 3 distinct methods that I'll be showing you today. We will start off with calendar images. Right, I'm seeing a question which I'll take right now, which is there anything new about the iPad version of Affinity by Canva? No, there isn't. Not at the moment. However, it is traditional for Canva to have a keynote approximately every 6 months. So that would take us to the end of March, early April next year. And it would make sense for them to launch it at their keynote. So that would be my prediction, but it's only a guess. But nothing new yet. I wouldn't expect it this side Christmas, put it like that. Right, so first type of calendar. We'll be using images to generate something that looks like this. So this is our first one. So let's head into Canva, into Affinity by Canva. Right, I'm going to use A4, but it's very, very similar if you're using letter size. So I'm going into here, and the first thing I need to think about is, what am I thinking about in terms of layout? Well, it was a 50-50 split. I had an image at the top of the calendar. I had the calendar parts at the bottom. So if I'm going for A4, do I need any margins? No. Now, in terms of if you're doing this for print, you may need to include elements for print, a bleed, instructions, all the rest of it. That will be determined by your print service, and your print service should give you instructions as to how to set that up. This one is fairly simple. I'm just going to use the whole area of an A4 page. So I'm not putting any margins on it. I'm not making any changes to this preset at all. I'm just going to create a document, and now I have an A4 page. Right, couldn't be easier to work in here now. All I need to do, and I've got an option up here, notice it always switches you back to vector. I prefer to work with this in layouts because it's a month per page. So I could have multiple pages in here, and I prefer to work in layout mode for that. At the top, there was an image. So I'm going to use the picture placeholder, and I'm going to draw out a placeholder at the top. It's going to take half the page. So I'm going to move this down, and you should see that it twangs, and I get a red line going across the screen. If you don't see that, you need to go up to the top toolbar, and there are snapping options. And the snapping can be on or off, but the disclosure triangle shows you a range of options that you have in terms of snapping. I've got them set like that, so I'll leave it on the screen for a couple of seconds so you can have a look at it. That's my preferred set of configurations, and it means when I scale these placeholders, they do snap and give me an indication that that is half the page. So that is how that is happening. I do believe that is turned off by default, which I can't understand, but it is. So we have a placeholder at the top to put an image in. I'm just going to use the stock for that. So the built-in stock will enable you to search Pixabay and Pexels. I'm going to stick with Pixabay, and I'm going to look for a beach because it's cold and it's November, so who doesn't want to look at a beach? Right, in here, it doesn't matter what size or scale these images are in terms of it's going to fit to the placeholder that you have. And the image I used was this one. So I'm going to drag it and drop it over the placeholder, and that will put it inside there. Once it's inside there, you have this cog in the middle with the arrows, that enables you to move it. Now you can see there I've got a little bit of room on the right or left, or I could centre it and I get the green centre line to show me that. You could, if you wanted to, scale it. So I could scale it so it's much bigger. Once it's bigger, this wheel in the middle will enable me to move it up and down and get the precise placement that I'm looking for. So I might want something like that. Really doesn't matter. It's completely up to you at this stage. I will take that down a bit and we'll have it like that. Right, that's that bit done. Now, the image that I'm working to also had a date on it. So I'm going to get the text tool. This is the artistic text tool. And I am going to stretch that out a little bit and we'll move it into place. It's far too big at the minute, but I'm going to worry about that later. And I'm going to put 2026 on it. And I will change the font from Arial. We will go to, it sure looks nice, so let's choose that one. And put that in place, and I'm just going to scale it. That's why I've used artistic text. A little bit faster to scale it. And then I think it would probably look better in white, so I'll change it to white. Right, all of that is standard Affinity stuff. That's nothing to do with calendars, is it? Not particularly, it's not. Right, remember, 3 different ways, 3 distinctly different ways to create a calendar. This is by far the fastest. I'm going to get another picture frame. So click on there and draw out another picture frame that covers the whole of the lower half of the A4 page. If you are in Europe, you'll probably be aware that A5 is half the size of an A4. And guess what? A6 is half the size of an A5. I know it's bizarre, but that's how it works. So this picture frame I have is A5 in size. What I now need to do is go and get my actual calendars. So my calendars are, in fact, I think I'll get, oh no, I'm looking for stuff that I can't find. Right, I've got some images that represent the calendars. So what I'm going to do here, there we go, that's better. Right, I will show you what is in here. So this is the calendar assets for Affinity, which I will give you a link for at the end. I have 4 templates in there that I'm going to generate during this session. And I have my calendars. And these are my calendars. They are just images. I have January, February, all the way through to December. They are PNG images and they have a transparent background. And this is why this is by far the fastest way to work creating calendars. I think I had this one as February, didn't I? So I'm going to drag and drop February over to that picture frame and you're done. Doesn't really get much faster than that, does it? Now, actually, this doesn't match the original that I showed you, but you probably looking at it wouldn't know what the difference was. Let me tell you. Right, it doesn't really need to say 2026 because we've got 2026 at the top, but this is an image. So I can't say insert half the image and don't insert the other half. But what I can do in here is change this. I can start editing this in ways. So for instance here, I can take this down, I can change it, see what's happening? It's all moving. So what I might want to do in here is crop this with a vector crop. Now the vector crop tool is over here. The keyboard shortcut for it is R. What that will enable you to do is leave the image at the same size, but crop part of it away. So if I take that down and I cut off the February, now I can do something else. I can either type February in, but I actually had it saying 02. And the easiest way for me to do that is to say, well, this is the correct font. It'll match. I'll move it down there. I will click to make it black, and then I will edit that so it says 02. Now, I think by comparison to the year at the top, that is probably a little bit big. I can change that in 2 ways. I can either eyeball it by just doing that and saying that's about right, or I can go up here and say I want that to be 64 and it will scale it. And there is your first calendar. Very, very simple and very fast if you have the assets in terms of images, 1 per month for the year. Then all you would need to do is generate the other 11 months. But it really is that straightforward. Now, there are variations on that theme using exactly the same calendar images. So we have that for one. If we go back to the pages, I will create them all in here because they are all very similar. And that way we can do a good comparison as well. So I'm going to add another blank page to that. Right, this time I want to use the same calendar, but I want the whole thing to look very, very different. So I'm going to create a calendar that is a full page calendar. To do that, I am going to use another image frame and cover the page with it. So the image is going to drop into there. And then I need two elements, but let's go back and have a look in here. This one works really nicely with this. So I'm dragging and dropping that image in from Pixabay. Again, you can move it, so I'm going to move it to the right so we've got a little bit more going on with the image. And the reason that this image works really well is that there's negative space. At the top, you would be able to see that image with a calendar over the top of it, but it wouldn't interfere to the point that you can't actually read the calendar. So we now need a calendar. Well, to do that, I'm going to put another picture frame on here. I'm going to start at the top because remember, my images are A5 in size. So it's going to be half the size of my A4 page. And then I'll put a month on it. And again, I think I went for February for this one. So I'm going to drag and drop February into there. Now, obviously, you can see we can't see it too well. We have issues. So what I'll do with this is move it down so it's using the negative space a little better. And I still have that February there, which again, I don't want. I want that much bigger across the top. So I'm pressing my shortcut key, which is R, but I customized it, but it's the vector crop tool. And move that down so I'm cropping off the February. I now want to put a heading at the top, which again would just be artistic text. So I will put in there February 2026. Now, I don't particularly want that font, but we'll get it sort of in place first and then go and change the font, and I'm going to choose Trajan Pro. But I don't want it bold. And then make sure it's centered and move it into place. Now, the problem is, although I think black is the right colour for this, or at least a dark colour, the image at the background is sort of interfering with it. It's not showing it off to its best. So what I'll do with that is cover it up again with an A5 shape this time, like that. And I'm going to put a gradient in it. So G for gradient, which is this tool on the left. Draw from the top down. A lot of people, when they're putting a gradient, go to the middle. I don't, because that's where the sizing handle is. So I'm sort of 20 to 25% in. Click and pull it down. Hold the shift key to make sure it's straight. And then colour it. I don't want it going to grey. I want it to go to white, but I want it to be completely transparent. So I will take that down at the bottom. The top should already be white, but just to make sure, we've now got white. Now the problem is the stacking order. Obviously it's covering it up, but if we move it down so it is just above the background, we can still see the image, but now we have a beautifully laid out calendar on there as well. And that is the second layout. So although these images that are the calendars are the same, they can look very different. So we've got two so far. But this time I'm going to make something completely different. We can still do it in here, still going to be A4. We'll see how we go with that. I will ask at the moment, have we got any questions about anything? Right.
One question.
I'll take one or two questions then. Where you go.
Team Western Productions says, can I do box for calendar, like write stuff in it?
Yes, you can. The last demo I'll show you is the one that you're all going to want to use. This I'm showing you because it's really quick, really easy. But think about that diagram. The flexibility, not really there. There's a little bit that you can do in terms of what you've seen me do, but it's not as flexible as using a manual table, which we're going to come on to.
That's it.
What else have we got?
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Okay. We'll go on to the next one then. So, a new page. Now this time I want something completely different. But I'm still using the same images. That's the key to this. This is why this is quick and it's easy. So in here, I want a layout for an entire year on one page. Now, because of that, I'm going to use more than one image because I need 12 months showing. So in here, I need to alter the document setup. Now, I only want to do it for this page. So actually, a faster way than going in here and then choosing what I want is not to go in there at all. If you bring up your guides, so view guides, these are your guides. Now, guide-wise, I need two distinct different things, but they're both in this dialog box. I'm going to use column guides, and I'm going to have 3 of them. Not 4, 3, right. But these, as you see them, are going right to the edge, and I don't want them to go right to the edge either. I'd want the gutter between them slightly narrower, so I'll go for 6. But I need margins on it because I don't want the calendars to go right to the edge. It would make it look odd. So I'm setting that to 10 millimeters all the way round. You'll notice I typed 10 millimeters in there and it changed all 4 of them. That's because we have the lock icon turned on over here. The little chain is the lock that locks them together. And that's why when I put 10 in one, I get 10 in all of them. And that is it. So 3 columns, 6 millimeters and 10 millimeters for the margins. Now we have a place here that I can start working in. Now, one more thing that I know is that I want to start 90 millimeters down the page. And the easiest way to make sure I'm in the right place for that is to drag this on and make sure that it's set to 90. Right. The monthly calendars are going to go at the bottom of this page. Remember what I'm working with. I am working with images here. It's as simple as that. I would start not by dragging and dropping those images on. Let me show you why. Right, there's January. What size does it need to be? I've got no idea. So I'll start scaling it down. It's going to be the width of that. Right, is that right? It could be. I'm not sure. Don't get embroiled with the content of the calendar before you've worked out what the layout needs to be. To do that, use a picture placeholder instead, like this, and draw that out. And then you can play around with these. Now, one thing to think about is what size does that actually need to be? Now, if I drag this on again, and we scale it so it's the width of that column, then I at least know what the width of that is. And if we look over here, it's showing us the width. So I can copy the width of that. That would be the same as that. The height is what I'm interested in. Now, when I scale this, it scales it proportionally. So that means when I put this next to there, that's not actually bad. We're almost there with that, aren't we? But because I have my snapping turned on, look how fast it makes it. That is telling me that is bang on the right size without having to do anything else. Right, so I have one. What I then need to do is have a second and a third and a fourth in that column. Now, I've not been very careful with the layout of that. The top one's right, the bottom one's right. I can make sure they're aligned on the left and I can start moving around like this, but they don't particularly match. I am being told because of my snapping that 1, 2 and 3 are correct, but the gap isn't right here. Don't waste time trying to fix it. Just select all 4 of them, and because the top one is right and the bottom one is right, you just want the middle 2 to move so the gap between all 4 of them is the same. And there are things to help you with that in the alignment options. You have your alignment to align horizontally and vertically, but you also have some distribute options at the end. So these are your spacing options. Now, horizontally, they're correct. But here, vertically, if we click that option, they will twang straight into place. So don't bother doing it manually. Once you've got those 4, select them, hold the Option key down and drag them out, get them lined up in the second column, and do the same again to get them in the third column. Now, see what is happening there as I'm moving these and they are put into place. Only I shouldn't be doing that, should I? There. What you've now got is your snapping options are showing you a red line at the top, a red line at the bottom, green lines in column 3 because that's the one you're moving, and it's showing you that you have a 6mm gap between the whole lot in the middle. So it's really comforting to see that, to know that it's absolutely right without having to do much work manually. Right, so I now have my 12 picture frames ready for the calendars. Right, I also need an image at the top. So it wasn't a huge image at the top, it was going to cover 2 of these. And notice again, as I'm pulling that out, it's twanging. And now, rather than me having to eyeball it, it's saying the gap between each of the placeholders for the calendars is 9.9. So we'll make this the same. Is that what you want? And it is. That way it will look neat and tidy. And the only other thing I need on here is the 2026 for the calendar. So to do that, I will go and get a text frame. Now you may be thinking, just a minute, you've used artistic text for everything else. Yes, but there's a reason for this. So what I'm going to do is draw out my text frame and put in my text frame. Good grief, what happened there? Why did you delete that? Okay, it went and it deleted that and I don't know why. Don't do strange things. Right, let's go and get my text frame again. There's my text frame. And I'm going to put 2026 in it. Obviously, it needs to be much bigger than that and probably a chunkier font. So let's go for Couture again. We'll make it much bigger than that. So probably within, I think it was around 60 when I did it from memory. Now I will have to make this frame bigger so I can see it. Now if you want that where it is like that, that's fine. If you would like that vertical, you need a trick to make it work. You need this frame to be tall enough for it, but narrower. And as I'm doing that, it is spacing it out. Now, obviously, I've got a problem there. We can't see the bottom of it. But if I make sure that I've selected all the text and I go into here, I can set this to be the default or exactly, or a percentage of the height. And that's what I'm going to do. And now you've disappeared on me. Oh, don't do this. Okay, now I've lost a toolbar. That's not good, is it? I don't know where it's put it. Right, I clicked and it disappeared. That's not good. Right, have we got it here? Can we show it on here? Or am I just going to have to come out of it and go back in? Don't do this to me. Context toolbar. Well, it says it's showing, but I want it docked. Don't move. Stay exactly where you are. Right, that's so I can see in here. And it's set to 120, and that's why each letter or each number has a huge gap between it. If I set that down to, let's say 80, it fits in, but it's a little bit tight. So going back into it, probably 90 or 100% would work quite well. But what I'd need to do with this is put it in place. I still think that's a little bit too much. So let's go for 88 and keep working down. What's the biggest we can have it, but fitting in the space? And there we go. We now have it vertical. If you're going to make the text vertical like that, I would centre it. It's only a fraction of a difference, but it all matters. And now we have the framework to create any calendar you like. So it could be 2026, 27, 28, doesn't matter. We're going to put an image in the top frame and images representing each month in the bottom. If you're going to use this multiple times, this is the time to make a master page from it or a template, depending on what you're doing with it. But we're ready to go. So what I'll do is go back into the stock. I think the image I actually used had beach huts on it. There it was. That was the one I used. So I'll drag and drop that up there. I liked the image, but it looks like it's facing outside of the calendar. So this is just a design thing. If you're having somebody point to something or somebody look at something, you don't really want it to look like they're looking outside of your design. So very simple fix with that. All I need to do with it is use the options at the top to transform it. And what I want to do with this is just flip it so it looks like the beach huts are looking inwards. Now, I appreciate there is some text on that and I should probably edit it, but you know what? It'll do. Good enough is good enough. It's now facing the right way. Then all I need to do is go and place images in here. There is a quick way to do that and a slow way to do that. Shall we try the quick way? I don't ever use this, but we'll do it. So I'll say image place, and I will then... Don't tell me you've crashed. Crying out loud. Right, I'll go and get it. Right, so where did I put that? Oh, I'm not quite sure where that is in there, but what I'll do is I'll go there, and there they are. Right, these are the images that I want to place. So I will select them, and I will say open. That will load them in to a secret panel. You cannot turn this panel on by default. It appears magically when you have multiple things to place. So I have all of these things to place in here. Right, so those are what I've loaded in to my place. This is the one that's selected, so I can click to place. Once I've placed it, you will notice multiple things have happened. It's placed January in the correct location. It's changed my mouse pointer, so it's all kinds of things showing me. But what it's doing is saying, when you click on the next place, I will load in the next image, which is February. It's the one that's highlighted in blue. Even if I hover over the one I've just hovered over, you see it now says February. Move away and it's actually got January in it. So February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Did I mention that using images was quick? That's what I meant. Now you have a full year's calendar and it literally would take seconds. I don't use that often unless I've got something like, I do something called a show summary for one of my podcasts, and I lay it out, I lay the text out, and I use picture frames for the images. Then I go to the folder and it's just click, 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 click. So there is our annual calendar. Now, having done all of that once, you don't want to reinvent the wheel, do you? But you would like a totally different annual calendar. Right, let's go to the pages and we will duplicate that page. And this is how fast it is to make something completely different. So I don't want an image on this one, so we'll just delete it. I do want this, but I want it across the top. So all I need to do is make that wider. Now, because I tightened up the text to fit vertically, in here this time, maybe I do want that at 120 or even more than that. I could do that. So we'll put that across the top. I'm going to make sure it is centered across there. And I'm going to need that to be white because I'm going to change the background. Very simply, I'm just going to put a shape behind it and put a colour in it. So very nearly black, but not quite black. Now, obviously, at the moment, it's at the top. It needs to be behind everything else. So let's move it down to be behind everything else. Did not want to put it inside there. Come on, right down the bottom. That's where I need it. Now, obviously, we now have a problem. We can't see it too well. So first trick is Control and W, and you'll toggle off the column so you can actually see what you've got. And the problem with that is that's not viewable. That is not usable at all. These are also a bit on the small side. So I'm not interested in the background. So we'll lock that into place. But all of the other picture frames, if I grab hold of them, what I can do here is make them bigger. So I could pull them upwards, pull them outwards, just basically make them bigger, which I'm going to do because we're not using an image. So I'm just scaling that so it fits a little bit better. Now, the other problem I've got is a bigger problem, which is I can't really see the days. And they are images. So I can't really go in and change the colour of anything specifically. But what I can do is make sure I've got them all selected. And although this is a layout application at the moment, I've got it set to layout, we do have available in the layers panel blend modes. And blend modes change how images interact with their backgrounds. Now this is making it darker, so this is not helping at all. Lighten, also not helping much because I can't see the days. But when we get down to the bottom, we've got all kinds of things that we can do in here. And one of these, which is contrast negate, totally changes it. And now my black text is white and I've got an annual calendar, and that took less than 5 seconds. All I would have needed to do was put the background on it, move the date, make these a little bit bigger, and we're good to go. From the same image. So we started from that and we've ended up with that really, really quickly. Right, so we've got that sorted. Now all of those are using the image method, which is you have an image of your months and you use that to create the calendar. Like I say, there's no badge of honour for the fact that you did all of this by hand and it took 6 hours. If what you need looks right with the images, then use images. And I will provide you with those images at the end so you can have a play around on your own. But we're going to change tack slightly here. I'm going to save that at the moment. I shouldn't save it as untitled, should I? And it's going to go in there. We'll call that work in progress. That's good. Right, we've got a proper title now. So, what did we just do? Right, we created that. You'll notice a logo in the bottom right-hand corner. That is included, the template and the date image, in the calendar assets for Affinity that I'll give you a link for later. This one is also included. I can't include the image itself, but I have included a placeholder ready for you to use it. And that is included as a template as well. As is this one. So you've got all the layout already done for you. All you need to do is add the images to it. But we're now moving on to the second way of doing a calendar, which is a little bit faster. Well, it's not as fast as images, but it's faster than the tables are going to be, and it's automated. So we're going to automatically add calendar days to a table. To do that, we're going to use a totally different layout, which is this one. We will create something that looks like that. So that bit at the bottom where we have the dates this time, that is totally editable. If you want those weekends to be grey or blue, you will be able to do that. But you do not have full editability with this method. This is the interim method. Right, so what we'll do is we'll have another blank page and we will recreate that one. So there was an image at the top. So let's make sure we can see this. There was an image and it covered the whole thing. So this one doesn't actually need these columns or anything like that. So we could go into our view guides and we could get rid of those because I'm not using them anyway. So take them away and this could then be set to 0. Like that. That is still showing my 90, but I'm just going to drag it up and throw it away. Literally just drag it off the page and it disappears. Right, what I need to do with this is to create placeholder first for my graphic. So we'll go and get that, put that in place. I'm not sure which image I use for that, so we'll look for Valentine in here and use something that'll do. That'll do. Right, we'll have that one. That'll do. That doesn't look too bad, actually. Don't need to do too much with that, do I? Could make it a little bit bigger. Could move it up a bit. That will do. Right, I'm moving this so I can actually see what I'm working with. Then over here, so I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. We'll have the image like that. Then I had a shape over here. So that was literally just at the back of there. Then I need enough space at the bottom. And I'm thinking here, how much space do I need? That'll probably do. Right, I've got this that I want to match to that. I actually had it red, but we will go and grab one of these colours. And that's not too bad. Right, then I had February written on there. And I did that in exactly the same way. I wanted vertical text. So I'm going to grab that, draw that out, and it said February. I think it was in white, actually, and it's in the right font as well. So all we need to do is move it into place. but I had it going vertically again. So I need to make this big enough so I can see it and get it in there. It is already centered. Now, if you don't know how big that needs to be, you may have made that much bigger to make sure that it fits. That happens to be just about right. I could probably make it a little bit bigger. So let's try 64. That just about fills it correctly. But now I've got this bit hanging off the bottom, and once I start working down here, I don't really want to be working with this in the way. If you hover over the bottom and you get the double-headed arrow, double click, and it will shrink it back to the size it needs to be for its contents. And that means you are free at the bottom to start editing this. One more piece of text that I needed, which was 2027. I had this as February 2027. So I'm putting in 2027 in there. Let's make sure that that font matches the other font. And I want it the same colour as this box. So I will pick up the colour from there. And then I rotated it. And I think I did make that a little bit bigger. So we had that down there. We're good to go. So we've done all the rest of the work. Now we just need to create the calendar. So to create the calendar, I'm going to use the table tool. So we're working up to the most complicated way of doing it that's the most flexible. But what I do with the table tool, you can draw a table out. As you make the table bigger, you get more cells in the table. And I've seen people really struggle with this because you want 7 across. Well, 5 fits, but if I want 7 and I start pulling it out, now it's covering the 2027. Don't worry. It doesn't matter how many cells you've got in there because you can edit it. So in here, I've got 3. You've got multiple ways to add extra columns. The easiest is to select, type 7, press enter. Now you've got 7. This one, I'll show you another way of doing it, which doesn't involve typing. You just pull. You can take it up to 6, which is what we want, or you can pull it down. No typing required. Once you've got that, you then use the handle to have it fit in here. So you make it the size that you want it. Now, actually, February in 2027 starts on a Monday. So we do need to put in, this is something that you will have to do if you want to do it like that. You will have to put your Monday and Tuesday and so forth. Now, that is the wrong colour at the moment. I am going to make that grey so we can see it. And obviously, mighty big as well. We definitely don't need it that big. So let's try 30 in there. That's much better. Right, so all I'm going to do with that is fill it in. And although I set that, I think it's doing its own thing. We'll find out. So Tuesday, it's definitely doing its own thing. But I will not concern myself with that. I will sort that out in a minute. So I'm just putting in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think I've gone wrong already. This is because I can't see it. Crying out loud, Affinity. And now it's put 2 in there. Right. I've no idea what they say. I'll have a look. Right. I'm going to put 32 in there so I can see it. And I'm going to make them grey. What have I got? No, I don't want the background grey. Crying out loud. I've missed one. That's the issue. Right. Let's make a T in there. Have you ever seen anybody struggle quite so manfully here to do something so simple? Right, I don't want to change the background of the cell. The cell needs to be white. What I want to change is the colour of the text. So, is there a better way to do that? I'm pondering that myself now. Right, there's the text. Let's make the text grey. Right, we're almost there. That one's not quite the right size. Well, that was a calamity. If I was doing that as a video, Mike, I would have edited it. But it's live, so what can I say? Right, there we go. Now, these are fine, but they need to be centred, so I'll centre them. Probably a good idea at this stage in the entire table to centre the contents of the table. And make some space and all kinds of other magic things. But what I will do here, this is my alignment, and you can top align, centre align, bottom align, or justify. Well, we'll centre it. Right, now we're good to go. Well, it was such fun, wasn't it, witnessing me typing in the days. Who wants to sit here while I type in 28 numbers? No, I didn't think so. Luckily, we have a workaround for that. Right, so I'm going to grab all the rest of these. Now, there are only going to be 4 full weeks because it starts on a Monday. But I'm going to show you with extra at the bottom because this is a trick. So in my paragraph panel, let's drag that out so you can see it. There's lots of different sections in here. So we have the spacing, we have tab stops, we've got all kinds of things. We're interested in the bullets and numbering. Right. So, I've got Friday in twice as well. Thank you for that. And let's put that in. I would say it's a demo, but never mind. We'll do it right. Right. So in the bullets and numbering, to do this quickly, what if I just made this a list? What if I just said, okay, the numbered list? Now you're looking and you're thinking, oh, good grief. And you know what? This didn't happen in rehearsals. And I really don't know why it's misbehaving itself. To the point I'm contemplating redoing it. I think that might actually be an idea because it's doing all kinds of weird things. Right, I'm going to do the table again. Let's get that in there. At least you see it twice, don't you? So we'll do the 7 across there. We'll do the 6 up here and then we'll resize it. And we will hope it behaves itself better. We'll test that by putting something in. That's rather good. So let me up there, paste that in. It's done it in the same thing. Don't want you to do that. Right. So when it's behaving itself, this is what it should do. So what I'm going to do in there is select the cells and go into here and choose a numbered list, and it is going to do it for me. Now we're getting somewhere. But it doesn't look quite right. I don't think we want the full stops after the numbers. But it has auto-numbered them for us. If we make some tweaks to this list in here, we'll be able to do this. So in the text box, it gives you some strange looking codes. But the strange looking codes are to tell you, I'm just turning my caps lock off because it's going to give me a message until I do. That is the shortcut key or the code for a tab. So let's get rid of that. And there is a character there. I know it's tiny, but it's the full stop. So I'm going to delete that as well. That has deleted it from the number. That only leaves us with the backslash and the hash symbol to indicate a number. All I then need to do is press enter. Do press enter. If you don't press enter, it twangs back and you get the tab and the full stop and everything. That is fabulous. But obviously you're thinking to yourself, there aren't 35 days in February, never mind 2 Fridays. Right, what I'm going to do down here is just go to the 29 and press enter. And what that does is delete it, and now it's started renumbering from 1. I don't need any of these, so I'm just going to go in and I'm going to press enter to get rid of them all. And they're gone. And now I've got 28 days. Now I can start formatting things. But what if your day or your month doesn't start on a Monday? What if it started on a Tuesday? Well, you'd have to go to where the 1 is and press enter. Now, of course, you have another problem. Day 28's disappeared. And if this was January or March, you'd need more days. But that's okay. 28, 29, 30, 31. The issue you have is that you have taken away the numbering on those cells. That's what happened when you pressed enter. So when you look at your bullets and numbering, these aren't a list. If you go in and you make it numbered, and then you go in to the text and you delete the tab, and you delete the full stop, and you press enter, now they're back. So you can play around with this, and this is so much faster. Now be warned, it's in the middle of our sliding scale of difficulty flexibility because it doesn't give you ultimate flexibility. There are limitations because it's a list on your formatting options. So you need to think about that. But what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to delete all of that. Here's hoping it works. Right, what I'd need to do is select that and choose no list on the whole thing, and it disappears because February does start on a Monday. And that will give me the opportunity to select the correct number of days and show you once again, go in, choose numbering, go in the text box, which is the format, When you've edited it, press enter, we're good to go. Now, the other thing that you can do in here is at the bottom, it says style, and it's got no style. It's talking about the style of a numbered list, and that is a character style. And you can have this as emphasis, which is italic. You can have this as strong, which is bold, and you can have it as strong emphasis, which is bold and italic, which is great as far as it goes. But we'll set it back to no style. And what you are able to do is go in and make a new style directly from here. So you can come into this, it's called style, but if we call that calendar days, and then we go in and we want to change it. So let's say we want, we'll start with a different font. So let's choose something like Poppins, which is much lighter. It's not quite as heavy a font. And we'll go into colour and decorations. And let's say we want this to match what we had up there. So let's go into there and choose that and click OK. And now that is applying to there and it is a style. If you go into your text styles, it will be listed at the bottom and you can edit it there like you would edit anything else. So if we wanted that to match the blue instead, you can edit it as a style. Isn't that cute? Isn't that great? Right, you may also want these to be a different colour. Now they're being formatted from the style at the moment, and that's the problem with this. It isn't that flexible. It's fast and it's editable, but it's not as flexible as it could be. Now you could on this one have used an image. It's just in here, if this is somebody's birthday or something, and you want to indicate that in some kind of way, maybe you want to highlight February the 14th. You could do that. That would actually be pretty easy to do. So in your shapes, I think we do have a heart in here, don't we? Right, we would be able to draw out a heart like that and put it there. Let's make it fit there a little bit better. Obviously, it's covering the date, but in the layers, it wouldn't be, would it, if it were behind the calendar like that? So we could highlight certain things. Now, you would be able to do that with an image. That's just an example, but that's the kind of thing that we're talking about that you could do. Flexibility. So that is a trick. That is a trick to use a numbered list. Right, we've got that one sorted out. We then need to move on to another layout using the same kind of trick. So I'm only repeating this so you can see how flexible it can actually be. So go to the pages and get ourselves yet another page and save this one. Right, so this one is going to be, let me have a look at that. I think I put margins on this one. So I will go to my view and guides and I will set that up. I actually want 2 columns and I want a margin. I tend to use 10 pretty much all the time. It's got 6 in the middle. That will do. That will do. Right. So I have my layout ready to go. Now what I want to do with this is use the table again. I'll put my table in. I actually want this table. I want to be able to size this table myself. So that is half of an A4 page. I actually want this to be 25% of that. So I'd want it to be half that size, which is there. And then I would want it to be half again. And I don't think that will twang to be half. But what it should let me do is bring that down to halfway and size this upwards. So let me get hold of it and size it. And that is 25% of it. So actually, I'm just thinking, now I don't actually need the columns on this. So I'll turn them off. We don't need to see them. So let's get that back to 1 column. That will do fine. I don't even think I need the margins. So we'll lose the margins as well. Right, so I have this table. It's the right size, but totally the wrong way in terms of what we need. So we need to put Monday to Sunday across the top. Oh, this is grand, isn't it? You'll have to do it again. Or I could copy the other table. What should I do for speed? No, leave it alone. Right, in here, I'm going to put 7 instead of 8. That's right, but I've got far too many here. So instead of 33, I think I need 6. And then we can stretch that out again. Right, so dare I do this? Right, let me grab hold of this first of all. And to make sure that I am centering it in both directions. And let's try again. Oh, dare I do it? Oh, it'll do. Right. Now I can see it. I'm not going to make mistakes, am I? Won't have 2 Fridays. There we go. Right. Now, in terms of the numbers in here, we know how easy that is to do. But this isn't February. So this is going to be January 2026. And it's also a little bit big as well. So let's take that down to 24. Right. Well, it starts on the Thursday. So you've got a few options. You could either format the whole group, or you could start on the Thursday. Now, if you don't know how to start on the Thursday and select everything else, you would select the 4 cells, hold down the Command key, which I'm assuming is going to be Control on PC, and then select the rest. You could even not select the last day because that would be day 32. So you could select the whole lot and then fix it, or you could do what I've done, which is make the selection first. Either way will work. You go back to your numbered lists and you turn on numbering. They are far too big. We will sort that out shortly. We'll get rid of the tab. We'll get rid of the dot. Oh, it's added 32. That's interesting, isn't it? It wasn't even selected. And press enter to fix it. Then we'll set it to 24. Now, you see, you've got a problem. As I'm typing in there 24 and pressing enter, it doesn't want to know. It doesn't want to know because it's coming from a list. So I would have to edit that, edit the list or the style of the list. I would also in here have to get rid of 32. So press enter to get rid of that. So let's select everything here. Well, let's make the right selection. Right, let's do that and that. Right, with it selected, it has no style at the moment. If I go back in and say make that calendar days, you can see it changes that. But also, if I go and edit calendar days, so let's go in here, and in our font, we can change the size in here. So it is easy, but in terms of flexibility, it could be better because now I have to edit the style of it inside the style. I can't just edit it directly. It's just the way it works. But there we have, that's January. And then what I would do is repeat that downwards, but I'm not going to make you sit through it. We're just going to pretend. Or we could actually do it if you like. What we could do is there's February and March and April. It should be quite fast if we know when everything is. So the 1st of February happens to be a Monday. So if we grab hold of that and we make that a list, you can see it's added in the extras, but it's not formatted correctly because we manually have to take out those 2 things and we have to then tell it what style to use and that will fix it. And then what we need to do is go in and enter to delete those. Just go and select and enter. Right, March starts on a Sunday. So this one's easier. We just delete and delete by pressing enter. We've now obviously only got 28. So it's an argument whether you have 5 of these and you make that the 29th and then put the 30th and the 31st at the top, or you add an extra row. I'm just going to leave it. It's a demo, but you get the idea. And our last one here starts on a Wednesday. So we would need to go in and add a Wednesday. So we just do exactly the same thing again. I know it doesn't look right, but it's really easy to fix it. Just don't forget to press enter. If you forget to press enter, bad things happen. And get rid of 32. Now, the other thing that I put on the side of this was notes, a space for notes. And I have seen so many demonstrations where people make notes by adding the word notes at the top. Well, that's a good start, isn't it? Let's put notes. Style's a bit off, but never mind. It's far too big. Make that the same size as that and make it less in your face. like that. So our notes are going to go over here. And what I see people do is add a line. So literally you have the pen tool and you click, hold the shift key down, and you have a line. If we look at that, there is the line, and then duplicate it. You can do that. You could power duplicate it, but you know what? Don't bother. Use a table. So go and make a table like that. So we want the table to fit that space, but obviously it's got far too many lines in it. It only needs one column, and it certainly does not need that many lines. I would say 25 would work well. And stretch it out to fill the space. So grab and stretch it out. And the beauty of this is, if you want the lines closer together, add some more rows to your column. If you want them wider than that, so let's say that isn't wide enough for you, go into it, shrink it down to 20 and stretch it out. And now you've got more space. And you don't have to go back and recalculate where your lines should be. But you might say to me, oh yes, but Elaine, look at it. It looks like a table and I wanted it to look like lines. We can fix that. So we grab the entire table, all the cells there, and you need your table panel, which I have nesting off screen. So this is my table panel. And I know people find this really complicated. The trick to this is using it in the right order. These things are displayed, these sections, in a particular order for a particular reason. You would apply things at the frame level first, and then you would apply the stroke and fill, and then you would work on the cells themselves. We're only interested in the stroke and fill. Right, how this works. You need to choose where you're going to apply this first of all. So I don't want, at the moment I have borders showing on all of these, which we can see because that is pushed in, that's saying outside. This is applying it to all of them. And what I want to do is change what's applied on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. When I select that button, it shows me that I have a border that is 0.2 pixels. I don't want any border on it. So I'm going to go in there and turn it off. That's it. When I click away, I now have what look like lines, but is actually a table. And you're done. You've got your notes, you're done. I do wish this was easier to move. It used to be easier to move. Right, so we've got another layout there. Now that, remember, is the second method of using it. And the method was to use the numbered list. Right. Okay, we will now move on to the next one. So we did that layout using this numbered trick. Right. Then we did a flexible layout, which was what we did with that. So that was the one I used. I used images for that, but you could use either. The next thing, this one is available in the calendar assets. But the next one we're moving on to is making magic with stacked calendar tables. If what you need is a calendar, and if what I've shown you so far is enough, leave this one alone. But if you want the ultimate in flexibility and layout, and you want to make a digital version, and you want to put it in GoodNotes, and you want to scribble all over it, this is probably your friend. So let's have a look at this one. Something that looks like that. That is what we will be aiming for. Okay. So let's get rid of that and go into here. Right, so we need a new blank page. Do I need anything in the way of layout guides to that? I think I had in this margins all the way around it. So view guides, and I think I had a margin of 10 all the way around it. Literally just as a guide. Right, I need to create a table, and then I need that table to be formatted. I did this, I do believe, as November 2027. Right, but I need a table, and I'm going to have on my table, let's have a look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 5 weeks on my table. So I've got the table tool. Let's draw out a table. It needs to have 7 across and 5 this way. So I've got too many there. Let's take that up to 5. Oh no, I need days as well. So I'm going to need 6. 6 by 7. So is that 7? You need one more. There we go. So that's my table, but I want this table to pretty much fill this space. So let's move it so it's a bit higher than that and pull it down. Now, before I get going with this, because it's much bigger and my calendar days are going to be in here, this is a bit tall for the days. Now, I actually, on mine, I made these much smaller and I actually put in Monday and I typed the whole thing in. So this is going to be fun, isn't it? Right. Thursday, Friday, and there we go. Right. Obviously, far too big. So what I need to do with that, I made this, was it Trajan? I do think it was Trajan. And it was much smaller than that. So let's try that. At a size that might just fit. I think it's 12. No, it's less than 12. Maybe it was 10. There we go. Now, the problem is that entire row here, we can lose the paragraph panel at that point. This entire row is far too tall. But if your table is correct in terms of it's taking up the right amount of space on the page, so I've got it going up to there. I'm not quite sure where that is. Let's double click on that, which opens up the guides. It's telling me it's at 41.1. That's not great, is it? Let's double click that and type 40, and that moves it so I know exactly where we are. So let's move that up so it's at 40 millimeters on the page. And now I'm good to go. But this table is the right size, but this first row is not the right size. Now, your problem is, let's make that smaller. Oh no, now the table's not the right size. So you end up with this dance where you make the row smaller and then you make this bigger. But look what's happening. The table itself at the top, it's making this row bigger. There are better ways to work than this. Right, let's undo and undo to get us back to where we were. The table is the right size. What you need to do is change that row without impacting the rest of it. To do that, hover over the edge of the row, hold the Shift key down, and scale it upwards. I'm aware that row 2 now isn't correct, but row 1 is fine. We'll centre it in both directions, and we're good to go on that. Right, row 2, select it by clicking it, go down to row 6, and hold the Shift key down. That selects all of these cells. The other way to do that is draw in them. It selects all the rows. Right click on any of the row headings and choose Evenly Distribute. And that will solve the problem without you constantly having to scale, rescale, scale, rescale to get it right. Now, this one was November and it started on the 1st. Right. If you're doing this manually, this is how you will do it. The trick to saving time in the future is not to use the numbered list thing. You could do, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but in terms of flexibility, that I want the weekends one colour and this a different colour and so forth, that's a bit difficult. You would have to have multiple styles. So, work on the principle you're only going to have to do this once. And you literally sit there and you type in the day numbers. Now, I have done this. I have also data merged this. So this is something that I have done. The trick is when you've done it to then make an asset of it so you never, ever have to do it again. So you literally just do it the once. Why am I trying to speak and type? Because it never ends well. Right, 18th, we're nearly there. Should have picked a shorter month. That's why February's good for demonstrations. Right, we are nearly there. 22nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Talk amongst yourselves while I finish off. Or fast forward if you're watching later. Right, and the 30th. I've just noticed on my demo that I had 31 days in November. There aren't 31 days in November, are there? Never mind. This is correct. Now, because I've typed these numbers in, Instead of what happened last time, where I couldn't change the colour and I couldn't change the size, I can do whatever I like with these now because it's just text. So I don't particularly want them to be bold, but this font is automatically bold. So I may need to choose something else and make it smaller and neater like that and not make it bold. Right, now I've now got problems. Although the dates are fine, they are, in terms of where they're placed in the table, far too close to the edge. Other people may prefer the dates to be in the top right corner or the bottom corner. Personally, I would avoid the bottom corner. I will show you why. But I leave mine in the top left, but not quite that top left. So with the cells selected, we go back into our table panel. Get used to the table panel. It is so powerful. We're not interested in the stroke and fill now. We're interested in the cell itself. We can see the width and height of the cells. What we're interested in is the insets. The insets are where the text will appear. Again, you have your chain icon where you changed one, you changed them all. For this, it doesn't matter whether that is chained or not. We are going to change the left and the top. The bottom and the right don't matter, so I just leave it like this. But that's not chained up, is it? Right. Oh dear, something else. You can't accept principle, can you? But I'll put them in. Right. We now need to take a format from these. Or just format them again. What size were they? What were these? They were 15. Right. 15. There we go. Everybody happy now? Is there anything else? You're going to stop me as I go through this. Right. There we go. So what I've done with that is take them. Obviously, this now needs formatting. These go blank when they don't match. So it needs to be pop-ins. It needs to be, I think it was just normal, wasn't it? Do we have normal? Medium? That'll do. And were they 15? I thought they were 14. Let's make them 14. The key point, never mind the 29th, didn't happen, right, is the insets. As you change this, it moves it. You only need to move it enough to give it some breathing space from the top left corner. And now they are totally and utterly in the right place. Right, so we've got that sorted out. That could be enough for you, apart from the fact that the title needs putting on, doesn't it? So let's get the title on it. This was November 2027. And I do think I had that set to Trajan. And I think it was black as well. But colour doesn't matter. Neither does any of that. Right. So we have that there like that. Right. Good to go as far as we go. But people then start saying to me, oh yes, but I've got special days. And I want this highlighting and I want that highlighting. And here we go. Right. You can do all of that. Before I start doing anything like that, what I do is Control and W and turn off, go into preview mode. And that way I can see what this will look like. And I can see, I don't mind these borders on this. I'm quite happy with that, I can live with it. But these don't really stand out too much. So what I'd be looking at in relation to that is grabbing hold of the days themselves and going into my table panel. This time it's not the cells, it's the stroke and fill. You could put a fill on it. What I was interested in was having a border on it on the top and a border on the bottom. So that is an option, the outside horizontal borders. It has them at the moment, but they're very thin. What I would like to do is boost that up to at least 2, possibly 3. 3 looks good, so I'll leave it set to 3. Right, what you are doing at this stage is setting this to be your base table. To the point, I would go into the layers. That is my title at the top, so I would actually start labelling these layers. This is your base table. All this is going to give you, I will put table so you know it's a table, but all of these, this is giving you a layout and nothing more than that. So my title I put at the back and I lock it because I'm not going to change it. What I am going to do is start making magic with this table. Right, and how I do that. I get the table and I Command and J or Control and J to duplicate it. I'm just going to turn off the back base table at this point, and we're going to concentrate on this table, which is going to be our, we'll call it holidays. That'll do. Right. It's identical at the moment, and we don't want it to be identical. Right, so what I'm going to do is take the contents of it and delete them. It doesn't need to have anything in it. These don't really matter, but we'll delete them anyway. And the formatting on these cells, we'll get rid of that while we're at it. In fact, this doesn't need any formatting anywhere, but certainly at the top, the other one's quite thin, so it doesn't really matter. But our cells on the outside, which are set to 3, I'm going to set that back to the default of 0.2, and I'm only doing that so we can see it. Right, let's get the table back over there. Right, so we have a framework that we can see. I'm going to start putting holidays in it. Where do the holidays need to go? Well, I would need to be able to see my base table to see where they go. So I've turned the base table on, but I'm going to lock it because I don't want to do anything there. I don't want to edit that in any way at all. Right, I can tell from this is going to be Black Friday, isn't it? So Thanksgiving's going to be Thursday. Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and Cyber Monday. So there's lots of things that I can type in here for this. Right, with my table selected, I'm going to try and get it to be a reasonable font. So we could make that Poppins and make that much smaller. We'll try 14 to be getting on with, and we don't want bold. You've twanged back yet again. I do wish this actually worked. It doesn't like it. I'll do it manually. Right, so Thursday is Thanksgiving. So let's put Thanksgiving in. Obviously, you can see what the problem is here with this in terms of trying to format it. I wish they'd make it work instead of constantly remembering the other thing until you've put some text in there and then it will sort it out. But let's get to medium on there. How's that looking? It's still a bit big. If you think of what a calendar looks like, we're probably looking quite small. Now, the problem we've got with this, obviously, is that it's sitting over the top of everything else, and that doesn't look great, does it? But it's a totally separate table with a transparent background. So if we aligned that to the left side, in fact, I would actually align it to the right, and we align it to the bottom, it moves to where it should be, and I can tell by looking at that, probably needs to be 8 points. We now have Thanksgiving. Let's put in Black Friday. Now, obviously, you can see what's happening. It's twanging back to the top. Do wish this would work, but it just doesn't until you put something in it. If we then take that, in fact, let's do it. You going to work for me? Are you going to work for me? It will let me do that, and it will let me align it to the bottom. If it would just let me set this to 8 points, which it will if there's content in it, right, then we would be getting somewhere. So let's turn the bold off. Right, we're good to go. So Friday is Black Friday. So I'll put Black Friday in. Don't need to do that. This is Small Business Saturday, which is a new one to me. But apparently it's a thing, so we'll add that in. Nothing happening on the Sunday. We're all recovering from the turkey, I presume. And then on this one, this is Cyber Monday. So you can see what's happening again. With no text in it, I have to go through and manually format it. I think I can copy from that and select all that text. And when I go into paste, I don't want to paste everything. I just want to paste the style. And that will solve that problem. But notice that the style it pastes is the text style. It does not paste the right alignment and the align to the bottom. But there we have it. Right, so that is our holidays. You do not have to stop there. You don't. What we could do is duplicate holidays. So Command and J, and we now have holidays. let's say these are special events. Turn the holidays off. You've still got these showing. What I'm going to do, purely for speed, is put these somewhere else. So let's say up here, I'm going to have an off-site on the Friday. So I'm going to align that. That is the one, isn't it? There we go. Nope, that's the middle. Right. And that one, get it down the bottom. And we'll call that off-site. And literally you go through and do whatever you need to do in terms of what you're doing. So let's say my birthday's not in November, but we'll stick it in there because we can. So let's put birthday in. And again, align that to the bottom like that. We'll get rid of a small business Saturday and we'll get rid of Cyber Monday because that's not in this calendar. So we have our off-site and we have our birthday. Right, let's turn the holidays on. Now you've got your base table, which has got the dates and days in. You have your holidays and you have your special events. You know what? We can do even better than that. Right, so we'll take the special events and we will duplicate it. And I think I did this with, we'll call it special events, but we'll call it special events icons. Right, what I'm going to do this time is go and get a picture placeholder and I'll draw it out. I think I had it about 25 centimetres. Was it about 25 centimetres? No, I think it was 20. Right, so let's set that to 20. And there it is. So that is going to be my icon. Now, I don't want it sitting on the top of here because if I move anything, it's going to move the lot. So what I actually want to do with that is cut it and double click in my cell and paste it. Now, obviously it's pasting it in the wrong place, but I'll make sure I've selected everything and I align it to the middle and the middle, it will appear in the middle. I then copy that and paste. So I'm pasting that all the way along here. Now that one you can see it's put in the wrong place. Why is it put it in the wrong place? It's put it in the wrong place because I think we've still got the text in there, haven't we? That we don't need. Right, so let's get rid of that. Now, what I need to do with that, select the whole lot and make sure that it's center aligned, which it looks like it is, but you need to redo it, even the ones that are right, to get them in the middle. And then paste them into the other cells. So I'm going to make sure that I've got rid of, I'm going to turn off these so I know what text is coming from this table and paste them in. And let's just paste 2 to finish off. Copy those and paste those in there. Right. Now I can turn on the holidays and the special events, but I'm only working on my icons. So I make sure everything else is locked. Now what I need to do is go and get the icons. So I am navigating here to my icons, which are in here. These are just a set of icons that I've got. They're actually for schools, as you can see. But let's say calculator, if we're having something like an audit. Now, how would I add an audit to this? Well, it's not going to be in the holidays. It'll be the special events probably at work. So make that editable, hide the top one, and let's say the audit is on the 16th. So I'm going to type audit. Obviously, I need to format that. So I will copy that and apply it in here. So let's paste the style on there and move it down to the bottom and to the right. Right, we now know it's an audit, but on our icons, we're actually going to add an icon to it for that audit, just by dragging and dropping it in. Just for good measure, I will add in a few others. I'm not going to bother putting what they are. We'll just add in some stuff like that. And now we have a stacked calendar. If we look in here, what we've got, we will toggle everything off. Right, on the top one. Okay, we started with, we didn't start with the title, but let's pretend we did. We started with a base table. We then added the holidays to it, which you can have lined up wherever you like and formatted however you like. We then added special events, and then we added icons to them. If you're finding the blank icons annoying, you can go into preview mode, which is Control and W, and they will disappear. And you can see that. Did it do naughtiness? I'm not sure if it did or not. Right, so you don't see those. Last thing to do. So far with this, we've worked up from the base table. But what if we wanted to say birthdays? It'd be great if the background was orange. Could we do that? Could we mark holidays in some kind of way? And the answer to that is yes. I'm seeing, could we have the paragraph style for the whole time? Yes, we could, but this is a demo. Keep saying it's a demo. And I'm starting from scratch because this is the kind of problems that people will have if they start from scratch. If you know what you're doing and you want to go and create a series of styles first, absolutely. I will show you a file that I've created, and it is a masterclass in styles. You change one thing, changes everything, but that is beyond a beginner. What a beginner will experience is what we're seeing right now. Weirdness happening. Right, but what I'm doing is, what I'm saying is, let's try and highlight these. Now, you could highlight them in the base table. You've got a problem if you try and do that, because you are editing the base table, which could change other things. So one thing you could do, let's toggle these off again, and we will go, in fact, I think it'd be easier with the holidays. So I'm toggling these off. There is sort of a blank table. It's almost blank. Right, I am with my holidays table. I'm going to unlock it and I'm going to copy it. I'm selecting the table and I have copied it. Right, what I'm going to do with this one is paste it in. So it's pasted it in over the top as a second holiday. I'm going to call this highlights. And I'm going to highlight some days with it. So it would make sense because we've been building up, haven't we? So let's put the highlights at the top. We'll make sure everything's turned on. Everything is locked apart from the highlights. And what I need to do in my highlights table is make sure there's no content in there apart from me highlighting days. So the audit day would make sense if just that cell was green. And you can obviously do that with your table panel. With a table cell active, you go and you set the fill. So we'll make that a pale green. So green for finance. Not bad? No t-shirt, because I've done it on the top and it's covering up the day. That should tell you exactly what needs to happen here for these highlight days. But I'm just going to highlight these 2 days because they would be a holiday. So while I've got that there, I will in here highlight that as a holiday with a nice pale golden colour like that. Right, now we need to work out how to make this work. These are the highlights. Instead of having them over the base table, we're going to create a sandwich. The base table is obviously the core of this calendar. The things on the top of it are stacked above. The highlights, they need to be stacked behind it. Move that behind the base table and you are good. Now that was done by highlighting a cell and giving it a fill. But if what you want to do is highlight a range of dates, so let's say that I am booking off the 8th to the 12th. I can't really do that in terms of blocking. I don't really want it displaying like this, where the whole cell is full of a colour. I just want to mark off the top. So I can show you what that looks like. I want to mark off that without using another table. And I can do that. All I need to do is go and get a shape, so a simple rectangle shape. Let's put that over there, like that. Probably don't want it black. I probably want it a more realistic colour, something paler than that. We'll start with lemon and work up from there. So we've got green. Let's make that a kind of pale blue. Right. Obviously, that 2 is in the wrong place. So select it, And if this is marking holiday week, I will call it holiday week, and I will move it behind the highlights. And again, now the dates show through, and I've got that. If I can't have the Monday off, Scrooge is in charge, all I need to do is select it and change that, although we don't want it shrinking down, do we? Like that. And now I'm having 4 days off and not 5 days. That is the most flexible way to create a calendar. But as you saw, it also took longer than using images or the numbering trick. But with this, you can do whatever you want. What that looks like, we'll save this file and make a new page. If you take the time, this is the kind of thing you can do. So in my assets, I have a calendar creation kit. And in here, I have 2026. I have taken the time with this. So if I add my January and I add February, so in relation to the question about styles, magic is happening in the background right now. So I'm taking these 3 just tables, like anything else. So we will spread them out so we can see them all, right? When I say magic is happening in the background, when this file started, it had the default styles in it. In fact, to prove that point, let's make a new file. And then you really will believe me. So we will add those 3 months to it. Right, what is happening in the background as I am adding these is it is adding styles. So there are my 3 months. The default styles that you will see in an Affinity file, so we're talking in the layout options of text styles, is you will have a base style, you will have a strong and an emphasis, and that is it. So that is what is in the styles. But if we go back to my file here, you will notice in our, make sure you're in layout view, text styles, let's fold them up. Where did that come from? Calendar creation kit. Where did that come from? I didn't create it. It happened when I dragged and dropped these calendars on. And what it added was just what it needed to make this work. So it has day headings, it has days, and it has month headings. The day headings in there are for weekdays and weekends. These are my days, so they are weekends and weekdays. And these are my month headings. Do you expect 12? Because there won't be, there'll be 3. But if I add April on, it will add April. And as I add May, it will add May. This is because I took the time and I formatted it. Now, why did I bother doing that? Well, if we look at January, right, and we look at our styles, I am not editing this directly at all. What I am doing in here is saying, right, day headings, weekdays, they look fine. But my weekends, I'm going to edit that style and I'm going to change the colour of the font to bright red because it's weekends and I like weekends. And that changes. I also have in here my days. So my weekends, I want to edit my weekends again. This time, let's say I want that to be a deep blue. I know the colours aren't great, but what we're doing is a demonstration to prove that this is editable outside of all of that. You can change anything in here by just changing the style. But this takes a lot longer to do. But it's worth it when you've done it if you then add it back to some assets. That is beyond the scope of the session that I'm doing today. If you want a session dedicated to how all of that is done, then let me know. Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments. But I thought I'd show it because I got the question about styles. But most people start with File New and they encounter all of those issues that we saw today. Okay, so that is that one done. Oh, I didn't save that one, did I? We'll worry about that later. Right, so that was making magic with stacked calendars. Now, the last thing that I'm going to show you is branding calendars. So one thing we haven't done so far, we've been working on the page itself. We haven't considered how to have consistency across calendars or branding calendars, but we'll do that now. So in the file we've been using, which I think was that one, let's go into the pages. I mean things like maybe you've got this one and you're using it for your business or something like that. Right, that was made from an image, if you remember, so it's the least flexible. But that doesn't mean that you can't brand it. You can. So what I'm going to do is I'll duplicate the page. It's a demo. I'm not wasting time and changing it to March. But I have 2 pages here that I need branding. And this is the kind of thing that you can do. I'm going to go into the master pages and create a master page. Right, doesn't matter what it's called. This is where it's going to be. What I want to do with that is say, well, this is for my business. And my business colour, I'd like it to have a background. So it uses the last colour, but let's say my business colour it's going to be a complement to some of this. So let's say fairly peachy. Affinity's accessing my screen. You don't say. That's because I'm using it. And I shut off notifications, so go away. Don't bother me. Right, so I've got this. Now, in terms of branding, there isn't anything on that in terms of branding. But in my assets panel, I have my personal branding. So let's say I take that and I put, yeah, I will be able to see it. I just need to work out where it needs to be to see it. So I'll put it there and then we might have to move it. That should work, actually. It's under halfway, isn't it? So I have a master page. I have 2 pages that I want that applied to. So select the 2 pages and then apply master page. I have 1 master page, going to apply it. When I go to it, it needs to be a little bit lower, doesn't it? So let's move that down a bit. And now I've branded it in terms of colour, and I've also put a brand on it, be it a name mark like that or a logo or anything else that you wanted. And of course, that was fairly straightforward. Making 12 of those pages wouldn't be difficult, but it enables you to change all 12 pages, even though it's a calendar, with 1 single master page. Right, okay, let's get into there. So we looked at what options you had for creating calendars. We started off with images, and then there was the automatically adding calendar days. Now that gave you a little bit of flexibility. It was the numbered list option. You can create flexible calendar tables by using the numbered list and then creating styles for each element of the list. While that is faster than doing it properly, which is doing it by hand, it does get complicated in terms of the number of styles you need to actually style it. The best way, in inverted commas, of making a calendar is to do it manually. And then you have the option of stacking calendars, of highlighting days, of putting holidays on it, of putting special events on it. But obviously, that takes longer. It is work that only needs to be done once if you do it in a kind of neutral way, and then you create assets from it or a template from it. And finally, we looked at the branding of calendars, where you create a master page and put your branding on it. Right, before we head into Q&A, I have a bonus for you. If you want those images and the templates that I created today, you can get that right now. There is the QR code and that is the URL. So it's elainegiles.com/scp-products calendar-assets-for-affinity. And that is what you will get. So what is in it? Well, there's 12 images that represent 2026, 1 for each month. There is the template that I started with. So again, I can't include the image, but what I have done is include the entire template. So you have an image placeholder at the top, you have an image placeholder at the bottom, and you use the images that are also included in this pack to put the calendar in at the bottom. This template is also included, so there is a picture placeholder at the back. There is a picture placeholder over the top of that, which is where you place the image of the calendar. And I've included the heading in it. But in case you haven't got the font is Trajan Pro, but I've converted the font to be curves so you can actually see what it looks like. And I've also included that one, presupposing that you are using the images. I've used image placeholders for the calendars on the right. And the fourth one that I've included is that one. Again, the image isn't included, but you will find that on Pixabay. Right, so that is where you will find that. Let me know if you're going to download that. Right, we have, where are we? Right. There is a like button. Remember that. There is a like button. It is down in the lower right-hand corner, or it was when we were recording this. There is also an option to subscribe. So do subscribe to the channel. And a big favour that I'm asking is, it's okay that we're all chatting while we're live, but later on, YouTube totally disregards that and is interested in comments. So even though you've been with me in the chat, and I'll be answering questions shortly, if you could go back afterwards and put a comment, all you need to put is thanks. It doesn't need to be a magnum opus. That really makes a difference with YouTube. That would be a big help. Right, this will be available on demand, as are all of the other sessions. Next week, we're doing planner pages. Again, it's not data merge, but we'll be doing planner pages. So think dot grids, lined pages, Cornell notes, all the kind of options you've got, trackers, all the kind of pages that you might put into a planner. Same time, same place, next week. And this will be available on demand, as will all of the others. Thank you very much for being with me, if you've been with me live. And if you've made it this far in the video, even better, I am really impressed. If you would like first notification of upcoming sessions, you need to go to elainegiles.com/VIP. Sign up for my newsletter. You will get notifications of replays as soon as they are available. Assets like I've provided today, and the first notification and replays. There you go. So, do we have questions, Mike? Right, okay, so I'm going to go into question mode. And Mike's going to read out the questions to me.
Right, before I do that, am I live?
You're live.
Before I do that, we've had lots of comments about how much they learnt.
Oh, excellent.
Right, so question, let's start at the top. This is from Nigel Green. What is the best format to use for my own images to import and then print the calendar on a photo inkjet printer?
The best quality you've got. The only thing is, when you start putting the images in, if they're really good quality images, so they're quite big, you will find that Affinity will start saying, do you want to link to these and not embed them? I tend to work with them embedded. You can work with them linked, but don't move anything. So before you start, work out where you're putting those images. And then to stop Affinity constantly stopping you working, you could link to them. In terms of the quality, for an inkjet printer, it's probably, to use the original quality is probably overkill. But it doesn't hurt to do that, does it? Rather than start compressing them. I have always had reasonable output. Some of my stuff goes for print. So it goes off to be professionally printed at like 400 dpi. And it's always come back looking decent. Even though some of those images aren't mine and they weren't the best quality to start with. So Affinity is really, really good when it comes to handling images. So really it's up to you to decide on a trade-off between the size of the file, both in terms of your Affinity file and in terms of the image files, as opposed to, because obviously that will take longer for it to load. You could reach a point where it's too much. So it just depends on how many pages there are. So the only time I would reduce the quality is if I've got performance issues in Affinity, most of which are dealt with by linking to images. But if they are really, really high quality images that are sort of 20 meg a piece and you've got a few hundred in the file, then it may make sense to reduce them slightly. Don't forget, what you can do is have working copies of images that are much lower quality. Get the layout sorted and everything else. So in essence, what you would have is your working file and your images in it. But outside of Affinity, you could have two folders, low quality and high quality. As long as the images are the same name inside those folders. So you start off with your really good quality images, and then you take a copy of them all and you crunch them down. but the file names are the same. What you can then do is work with the low quality images to make sure that Affinity is behaving itself and not slowing you down. And at the point you come to make the final file, instead of linking to the lower quality, you change and link to the higher quality, and that way you've got the best of both worlds. But there's just a little bit more management involved with it. But keep them as higher quality as you can, and that way, you know that any problems you've got are not related to something you've done. It's just the image. That would be my best advice. Okay, what we got next?
Next one, this is from Ignacio, but he thinks you might have answered it. Anyway, will these layouts also work for a digital calendar, or is there a different approach we need to take for it to be viewable online?
When you say viewable online, where do you mean? A digital calendar, to me, if you're printing them out, it doesn't matter. If you're making it digital, sometimes with a digital version, if you've used an image as the calendar, you wouldn't be able to select it. So that stackable one that you saw at the end, it is possible to make a PDF of that with layers included. And in the app you're then reading the calendar in, you can still turn on and off the layers that were there in Affinity. So for that, it would make a difference whether you use editable, stacked table approach, or whether you use images. But if you mean online, and it's a web page, then no, it shouldn't make any difference whatsoever. And it would be a decision for you whether you wanted to provide a digital version where they could toggle on and off the layers or not. It is a possibility, but for that to work, the application that the PDF is open in needs to support it. So obviously Adobe Acrobat supports it, but not every PDF reader does. But that's really the only difference, whether you allow them to toggle on or off the layers. Other than that, it doesn't matter. As long as the image quality is high enough that it doesn't pixelate when you create the PDF, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he says online.
If it's online, then no, you wouldn't be able to toggle layers on and off anyway. So no, it makes no difference at all.
Right, next one. Annie says, do you usually pick the longest month to set the scale for the rest of the months?
I do, and obviously you have problems with February, but it's a calendar, and there's nothing we can do about that. So even if February starts on a Monday, with it being 28 days, if it starts on a Monday, you definitely only need 4 rows. But I leave the blank one at the bottom for consistency. I choose to have 5, which means if I've got day 30 and 31, I will put them in boxes 1 and 2. Otherwise, I have to have 7 by 7 as the grid. And more often than not, the last row will be blank. And then, if it's blank more than it's not, what you're doing that for. But it's a personal choice. But in terms of working out the spacing, yes, I would start with the longest month. But in fact, you don't really need the month in it. If you think about it, you're either going to have 42 boxes or 49. It's up to you. So you could lay it out from just a grid of 49 squares and then work from there. But yes, if you want to put something in it, make sure that you're kind of starting week 1 on a Saturday or a Sunday, and then add 31 to it, and that will give you everything you need.
She said she meant the month word length.
Yeah, I would do that. What I do is I put them in. November's the longest, I think, and get it sized up to that. Obviously, something like May might look lost, so it depends. Then it's your design choice as to whether you do that. But yeah, I make sure that I put all of those in first. But don't forget that if you start, and you do start with May or whatever, but you end up with a longer one later, I would suggest using styles for everything anyway, in which case you can just edit the style and it will update all of them. So you'll have consistency anyway.
Okay, Mike Brett, on the balloons calendar, how would you organise a soft change from sky and clouds to the red panel if you wanted it?
Right, let's head off back in there and have a look at that. I think I did that in a demonstration. Where's my mouse gone? I did that in a demonstration. It's called trifold brochure. So in this, you mean, where we have some kind of fading to it. So what I would do is I would put a box on there, let's say like that, G for gradient, and pull across. Then this end would have the colour in it. The other end would have the same colour in it, but I would then set the opacity of it. What I may need to do at that point is move this slightly so it makes more sense. And then this I can pull back, or I can take it that way, like that. Now that looks like there's a line on it. I don't think there is a line on it, but it could be lying to me. Let's go into here and say none. You're still showing me a line. Come on, there is a stroke on it according to that. There we go. So you faded one to the other. So this is totally separate than that background. But if you bump it up together and the colours match, that is how you would do it. There is a full explanation of that in the trifold brochure tutorial.
Okay, next one. Numbered list. This is Ignacio again. Numbered list. When removing the numbers in the table, how does the return key remove the numbers? I thought for sure you were going to click on the delete key.
No, it's just bizarre. It's just a little trick that's there. And when you do, what you're saying is this is now no longer part of that bulleted list. Now, if you think about it, that is how the text works. So imagine that you are in a text box and you put a bullet in. I'll show you. Let's show you. Right, let's go down to here, get a blank page. That's a master page. I don't want a master page. Right, let's get a blank page. And we will use a text box. Right, so let's imagine that we put some text in, and we will align that so it's to the left. We will make it proper text rather than being what looks like a heading. And we'll make it black because we can. Right, so we've got some text. I then move to the next line, and this is an item in my bulleted list. So I apply a bulleted list to it. So with it selected, I go to paragraph and I go, let's pull paragraph out so we can see it. I then apply a list to it and it says item 1. I then in here go and I get item 2, but I'm not adding item 2 to it. It's just the second item in my list. What happens when I press enter? It disappears. So that's exactly what we did. It makes sense that it disappears when you're using it in the way that is intended in a text box, that I don't want that item. You don't delete it, you press enter and it disappears. So that's what happened when we had it in the table. It's just the way it works. That's how it works. And then it disappears. Now, the benefit to us was, because we'd applied that across multiple cells, when we deleted 1, 2 and 3 in the Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday didn't say 4, it said 1, because we'd deleted items within the list. So if in here we do add item 2, if I could spell, I'd be dangerous. Right, item 2 and item 3, and I think we're going to need item 4. Right, let's make that list a bit bigger so we can see it. Right, let's add a couple more. Item 5 and item 6. Right, if we go into here and we delete the item and press enter, it stops the numbering and then it restarts the numbering again. So it's doing automatic things with a numbered list. All we're doing is leveraging that in a table to pretend it's a calendar. That's what we're doing. So pressing enter takes the numbered item away, and that's why it disappears. It's not deleting it. So hopefully that answers that.
Next one, this is from Tish. I want to export the calendar to my wide format printer so I can print on 11 by 17 inches, and I want to have the cover printed on my roll paper. What would be the best process? Oh, hang on, I missed a bit there. And staple the center, but I also want to have the cover printed on my roll paper.
How do you normally work with that printer? I would set that up right at the beginning. I used A4 today because it was pretty standard. So that was why I used that. It would depend on how the printer is set up to work. I'm assuming you printed something to it before, set it up like that. Now, a roll printer, you might have to have them in separate files. Maybe that would be a better approach. Mine tends to go off for print. So what I'm more concerned about with my setup is that I'm sticking to the instructions from the print service. So I would say with yours, if you've already got the printer and you've used it for other things, create a template that is set up that will allow you to stitch it in the middle. And possibly the cover may need to be separate. You can, of course, have it in the same file and then set it up differently, but it might be easier if it's in a separate file. But it very, very much depends on the printer. You really need to know your printer inside out. We have this huge contraption at the church, don't we? It does everything, includes making tea. It literally prints, it double-side prints, it staples, and then it folds. Just leave it to it. But the thing is, it's the size of a small kitchen. I leave that printer alone. All I ever want that thing to do is print out an A4 sheet. But to get it to print the right thing, you need to tell it what bin to pull from, whether you want it stitched, whether you want it stapled, whether you want it folded. So it's really a case of knowing the equipment inside out and then trying to interpret that for what Affinity wants. So I do that a lot, because if you go to a print service, they'll give you instructions, and honestly, 10 times out of 10, it's for InDesign. And it doesn't quite match up with Affinity. You have to interpret it. So your printer instructions should have some instructions. It probably won't mention Affinity. It may mention how to do that in another application, and then you need to interpret that. Hopefully that'll give you some help.
Okay, there's 2 questions on Google Calendar. Joe Host says, how can I pull my stuff from Google Calendar? And Marie Russo says, how can I add a data merge hyperlink into a digital calendar to open Google Calendar when I click on a date?
Ooh, that right. Well, let's take the can we get the Google stuff in first. As far as I'm aware, there is no direct route to do that. So you should be able at the Google end to get some kind of output from it. It could be that you would be better with a third-party calendar app. The one I use is called BusyCal. But all that is doing is hooking up to Google and then showing you what's on your calendar. So you would need a way to export your events from Google. I am not aware of a way to live link them. If anybody else is, let me know.
No, I'm not either.
No, I've never seen anything like that. We used to be able to do things like that, but I am going back a long, long way. The late noughties with Apple Calendar. You used to be able to do all of that, and you can't do any of it now, can you, Mike?
Nope.
And it's so annoying. So if we wanted to iterate our way through a calendar and rename something, it's now difficult. It used to be easy. So I'm not aware of an automated way of doing that. Now, if what you want in your calendar is that it goes somewhere, then you would, if we're talking one place, that's not tricky. So if we're in here and we have a date and we want that to go somewhere, let's make it simple and choose one of the others. No, let's do this one. Right. If we wanted birthday to go somewhere, what we would need to do is to isolate that. So birthday is on, which calendar is it on? It's on that one. Right. If it's one thing, then you would go in and you would add a hyperlink to it. That's relatively straightforward. Right. You would Command and K, it would bring up the hyperlinks. You would tell it first of all what kind of hyperlink you want, and then you would put the hyperlink in there. So if I wanted that to go to my website, that is what you would do. When you click OK, it uses by default the hyperlink style, which is a text style in here. So you can have that looking however you want. It's as simple as that. When you output this file, to make that a live clickable link, you need to make sure in your PDF export that you choose digital. So if I am on for print and we look at the settings over here, you will see include hyperlinks is turned off. All of the digital options have include hyperlinks turned on. So that is if you've got one link. If you have multiple links, then I would suggest, if not the only way, but manual is going to take far too long, The best way is to use a data merge with it. So your calendar information would come from Excel, an Excel formatted spreadsheet, and you are able, from that data, you need 2 fields in your data. One is whatever is displayed on the screen, be it an image or text, and the second field would have the destination URL in it. And we demonstrated that, didn't we, last week? So last week we had a Twitter URL and a Twitter handle, and we added the Twitter URL to the handle. So the handle that was displayed would be like the word birthday here, and the URL behind it was in the second column from the spreadsheet. So I would suggest if you have lots of URLs, that is the best way to do it. You can do it manually like you've just seen me do, but that gets old fast and everything needs checking. It's too easy to add the wrong URL. Whereas at least when you can see the list of URLs in Excel, it's far easier to work with. So I would suggest a data merge for that.
Okay, Joe Host just said, can you import from Google to Excel to Affinity?
You should be able to, but I wouldn't like to say what format you'd get out of Excel.
Out
of Google Calendar.
If you go into the back end of Google, there is an export option. But if you've got multiple calendars like we have, it's just going to create an Excel file with all of them, or an ICS file with all of them. So then you'd have to get it into Excel and then filter it.
I'm thinking what that would look like. There would be like GUIDs.
Oh, it'd be a mess, yeah.
It would be an almighty mess that you would get out. A GUID is a globally unique identifier. So that's usually about 28 characters long. The data would need a lot of cleaning up. You may be able to find some kind of service, like one of these automation services, that would enable you to hook into it. So something like IFT. But there really isn't, like, people tend to think with Google Calendar, oh, it's got to be really easy, and it never is.
I've tried it.
It is so difficult. I know you created a solution, didn't you, with generating ICS files?
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. This used to be so much easier 16 years ago. They just seem to have locked it down and locked it down since then. And what they're forgetting is, while they're busy locking it down, other applications have come along, and we now have much higher expectations of what we can do with what we consider to be our own data. But Google consider the data to be their data, and they're going to restrict what they let you do with it. It's not easy, that. And certainly if it's a one-off export of this is, I mean, I can't even think of data that doesn't change. I was going to say football fixtures, but they change every 2 minutes now. But they didn't used to, did they?
No.
You used to be able to have the fixtures tattooed on you, and then they'd be the same. If you've got sort of static data or data you're in control of, you've picked the dates and that's when they're happening, then you're in a better position than most data, because you want a live link to the data. You don't want to have to repeat the process. And it's not really, Google don't really want you to do that. And that's what makes it difficult, the Google end. This end isn't that difficult as long as you can get it into a spreadsheet. But it's much more difficult than it actually needs to be. So have I bothered with that? No. Would I bother with it? No. I'd probably go the other way. If I was creating a cohort for a course that's 3 months long with 20 sessions in it, I would, instead of setting that up in Google Calendar, I would set it up in Excel. I would then take it from Excel to Google Calendar and Excel to Affinity. So I would start differently, because I know there are limitations if I start in Google. So I would think the process through and think different with it. You then have the central hub, which would be Excel. And what I would be able to do with that, if I had to change the dates, I could just redo my data merge to Affinity. But what I could do then at the Google end is delete the calendar and then re-export it from Excel and send it to Google. So you might have to think of the workflow in a different order to be able to do it quickly. They really don't help with that, unfortunately.
I might do a video on that.
Oh, you give Mike an idea now.
Right. Ignacio says, where can we purchase the calendar creation kit?
I haven't got that available for sale at the moment. It's complicated in terms of styles, but it's something I'm thinking of putting together. So I will let you know. If you go and download the free one, then you will be on the mailing list for updates to that free one. And when the calendar creation kit is available, I will let you know on that list that it is available. So thank you for asking.
Okay. Soul Hat says, I liked the stacked calendars idea. Will there be a session on using data merge to fill stacked calendars, for example, holidays?
Yes, I can do that. I am all evented up till Christmas, but I will certainly put it on the list. And yes, you can do that. So that was one of the benefits of understanding it. But I didn't feel today, I thought there is enough to do with calendars to understand the basics rather than say, right, let's jump into data merge. Because you would need to do it in such a way. You may need multiple files to do it. And people tend to look at the last one, the stacked one, that's the one I want. And if you don't know the basics of how to lay it out and why you're doing this in a table, it can get terribly complicated. But once you've got to the point that you understand, a stacked table, that would be great for, then yes, I can absolutely then move on to the data merge side of it. I will do something on data merge for planner pages and calendars. It won't be this side Christmas. But if you want that, then let me know and then it gets bumped up the list. There's an incentive for you.
Okay. Paula O'Brien says, how do we add elements to assets?
Elements to assets, right. Okay. In the assets, you have a range of assets. I do believe by default, you've got default and simply flat icons by Antonelli Babi. That is a free one from Affinity. The default one is totally empty. What I do is create a new category. So if I create a new category, this is at the very top level. I'll call this demo, and this is where I put the assets. So assets like in my personal branding, all these backgrounds and sidebars and logos and stuff. So we will, let's get a blank page. Let's go down to that blank page there. Right. I then add from here. So let's add 2 signatures. Right. And what I do on my assets, make sure you've got the correct assets selected. You have in there a subgroup. So in here, I would rename that. So let's say we want this to be signatures. Right, so I have my assets and I have my subgroup. All I then need to do down here is select it. Now you can see this doesn't actually have a name, I don't think. Do you have a name? I don't think you do. Right, so if I say signature, black, and we go to that one, then that is signature red. I'm taking the time to name that in here because that is what it will use when you add it to the assets. Then all you need to do is select it, go to the lower burger menu and add from selection. And it will add whatever it was called in the layers. If you then select the black one, repeat the process, add from selection, it adds them. We can then down here delete those completely and drag them on from there. And you see it's called whatever the name was before. And then you drag on that one. Obviously, I have loads of stuff in here. We've been doing a demo in MacBites After Hours, and that has got things like QR codes for front covers. It has got headings. Obviously, that is huge. It was for print. But what we'll do with it, shrink it so you can see it. So if I want to use that in our demo, I just drag it on from there. The other ones I've got my MacBites podcast assets. So when I'm making a poster for MacBites, if I want to add the waves, I can add it. If I'm adding the show number, I can add it. We've got Wolfie for After Hours, and you literally just drag and drop to add them. But that was how these were all generated. So these column ones down here are actually placeholders for images. So if I show you, if I go into new, and I go into my templates for MacBites, I have something called the show summary. And what I do with that is go to my page. I've got one thing already ready, but in my assets, as I add text to this, I add an image, and it's either a single column image or it's a double column image. And it's orange so I can see where it's placed. And the reason that I took the time to do that is that this image and this image placeholder have got text wrap on. Otherwise, I have to draw it from here and then go and edit the text wrap every time. So that's the kind of thing that I put in the assets. That's why I would do that. And that's how you add them back on. So I hope that helps.
Okay. You might have missed it in the chat, but Peter Williamson's put a super chat in.
Thank you very much. I did miss that in the chat. It's going that fast, and I'm looking at the screen while I'm talking. Thank you very much, Peter.
Which
that is
means
much appreciated.
Jammy's lost his crown.
Oh! We'll have to play The King Has Lost His Crown again, won't we?
Okay, next question. I accidentally deleted one of the days in the automatically done bullet list and couldn't get back to day 21. Clearing the list and trying to do it again didn't help. How can I deal with it?
Right, clearing the list and starting again you should have done. The other option you've got is to click into the cell, in your case, that had 21 in it and doesn't anymore, and then go to the paragraph panel and add a list to it. And the list should then, instead of starting from 1, it should be aware that you're creating a list in the middle of a list. So, should we see that? Can we do that on that demo page that we had? That wasn't that one. It wasn't that one either. Which demo page was it? Was it in here? It's this one. Right, if we take that and put it on a page of its own, let's see what happens. Right, so we've got 2 lists in here. So basically this gap in between the 2 is what you had in 21. So if I delete that, it goes back to 4. It deletes the cell and moves it back. The other way to do that, if I do that, I should be able to go to my paragraph and I've got no list applied, apply a list to it. So if you just apply the same thing again, it comes back. So I wouldn't say it's a recommended way of working because of these quirks to it. You know, I've deleted that now, that doesn't work. But if you think of it as a bulleted list, what would happen in a text frame? All you're doing is replicating that in a table. So its behavior is logical if you think of it as a bulleted list or a numbered list. So hopefully that'll get it back for you.
Right. Should have asked this one before. What's a stacked calendar, says Persibra.
Right, the stacked calendar is this kind of layout where I have a base table. So all of these that we were working with, all of these are just a simple table or an image. It's one table. A stacked calendar is where you have, get rid of the paragraphs again, there. Right, this is where you have in your layers multiple copies of a table. Each one has different elements in it and you stack them one on top of another. So if I turn all of them on, the top one has the images, the next one has special events, the next one has holidays, and then we're back to the base table. But in terms of stacking, you have the base table in the middle. The stuff you want to see on the top of that go above it in the layers stack, and the things you want behind it go behind it. So I had highlights and I had holiday week. So what you're looking at there is one table. What you're looking at as I turn these on is stacked calendars, where they are stacked one on top of the other. And the reason that I would stack them rather than try and squeeze all of that into an individual table is that way madness lies. To try and get some things aligned to the top, some to the bottom, some to avoid the numbers, to get the images in the middle, living nightmare. Just do each one separately. Holidays in one, special events in one, images in one, and then another table for highlights, which goes behind the base table. Okay?
Okay. Do you have a tutorial for PDF calendar with links, says Joho.
I have one for anchors and hyperlinks, which is the start of the process. I don't think I have a data merged version of that. But I did a video, it would have been late October or early November last year, called Anchors and Hyperlinks. Michael, find it, won't you, Mike?
I will.
Or would you like me to find it?
No, you can answer the last question.
Oh, go on then.
Ignacio says, can you show us again how you calculated one table size to fit 3 to 4 on a page vertically, similar to what you did on the notes calendar?
Right, okay, if we go back to the notes one, this one, I would probably have made this smaller, to be honest. It's a little bit overpowering, isn't it? Or did you mean that one? No, you said the notes one, didn't you? This one. Right, what I did with that, because I knew it was A4, I added a calendar and then, which was a table, wasn't it? Yes, it was a table. Right, let's get a new page and I'll show you. Right, I know the page is A4 and I have in here, I've got a margin on this as well, so that'll help. I've got snapping turned on at the top. So I know if I add a table and I want it to be a quarter of the size of this area over here, I add the table and I drag it down until it snaps. At that point, I know it's half the height. I now want it half the width. When I do that, it snaps. It's now half the width. And then I took that up and it snapped to the right place, which it isn't doing right now. Because what I need to do, well, go on, snap. Right, what I need to do with that is the height of the page, I need that to snap down to there, which is a quarter. So you'd need to know the height of the page and the width of the page. And I wanted it half the size of the page and then a quarter of the height. So I moved this guide down to the midpoint of something that is already half the size of the page. And because of my snapping settings, which once again, those are my snapping settings, because of what I have set in there, it snaps to the midpoint of the page. All I then need to do is put that in the right place and then move up to it. And then once it's in the right size and I've got my guide to it, then I can start scaling this so it's got the right number of columns and the right number of rows in it. But the other way to do it is just divide your page. Divide your page and put some grids on it. If what I wanted to do with that was work to the margins. So imagine in here, I want to work to the margins and I want 4 of them. Then what I could do is go to the view and go to guides. And in here, how many columns do I want? Well, I want 2. And I work out what gap I want in the middle. And then I add some rows in. No, hang on. I want two rows. There we go. Right. I want to add some rows in. So that gives me 3. That gives me 4. What I then do is put what gutter I want in it. So say I do want a little bit of a gap there of 6 millimeters. And now I just work to that. So my table that I have over here, I just put to that and it snaps to the shapes behind it, to the guides that I've created and the grid. And then all I need to do, so let me get that to reasonably what we need, which was 7, let's say 7 by 6. Oh, that's 6, 7, isn't it, Mike? You're driving me mad with that. Kids today, what can I say? Right, let's get that bang on accurate. That is not bang on accurate. That is. And again, the snapping, I can't work without it turned on. If you notice, it snaps. I've got red, I've got green. If that's not there, I'm totally lost. I'm like, what? Why has that happened? Right, so that's there. Hold down the Option key and then just drag and drop them into place like that. So your grid and your guides can create for you a grid that you can then work to. So although I didn't go down that route because I can't show every single feature that might be useful. Mike keeps telling me that. Don't go on about global colours again. But global colours are so powerful. Don't mention global colour. So you can't mention every feature, and I decided that grids and guides, not necessary today, but that is an option and that is how you would lay that out. And then you've got something to work to that you don't have to start calculating. So there you go. That is what that would look like. Okay, was that really the last question?
Yes.
It was.
It was.
Oh, I thought there might be more. There you go. Right, okay. Have you got any more questions? Not too late to put a question in. We'll give you a couple of seconds to think about putting a question in. Don't forget, next time is planner pages. We're not data merging and we're not doing calendars. We're doing standard planner pages that you would include in a digital planner or a printed planner. In doing that, you'll see features like power duplicate and all kinds of stuff. Assets, we'll see. What else will we see? Lots of different features.
A couple more questions.
I knew there would be. There you go.
Right. Tish says, can you make them symbols?
Make what symbols? The calendars, yes, you can.
Okay.
Although, unless you're calendar symbol, you can, but you've got to remember that by default, symbols automatically update. So if what you're trying to do, let's say you've created a calendar and you've made it an asset, you drag it on from the assets panel and then you make a symbol from that. Your problem is if you make changes to one of them, it's going to replicate through the look to the rest of them. But I will be demonstrating symbols next week because I will be making a habit tracker. And last time I got a snotogram about that, didn't I? I demonstrated how to make symbols in Publisher via Studio Link to a designer. And I got a snotogram that was, I don't have designer. Well, that's not my fault, is it? Why don't you buy it? But this time, of course, Affinity is 3 apps in one and nobody has to go and buy anything at all. So hopefully that'll be a snotogram less that I get about it. You live in hope, don't you, Mike? Yes. But you're laughing because you're a trainer and you know exactly what it's like. Go on, what's the next question?
From Joe Ho. What are global colours?
I'm loving that question. I'm allowed to mention it now, Mike. Now somebody's asked.
Go on.
A global colour is where you create a colour and when you update the colour, it updates all instances of it. What that looks like, let's get a new page. And I use global colours all over the place. Right, we will add a shape. That has the default fill that it had before. We'll make it green. We won't worry about that. Right, I will make multiple copies of the shape. I could do with some more copies of the shape. Let's add 6 of them. Right, and they're not lined up. Get over it. Right, so in this one, I want to make a colour. And I want that colour to be a global colour. So let's say, I'm not going to make it green. No, I'm definitely not doing that. But if I go up to the top, I can add a global colour. It will need to do one magic thing that if I say add global colour, it will do. Which is, it will show me this, but that's not the magic. What I then need to do is to create that colour. So let's say the colour that I'm looking to create is that purple colour. And we'll call that magic purple, which is not a good name for a global colour. I will show you why. But the magic it did was it made a document palette. And this is a global colour. You can tell it's a global colour because it has a white triangle in the lower left-hand corner. We will then apply that colour. And we will go through and we'll apply it to all of the shapes. There is magic purple. I then right-click and edit the fill. So I'm going to make it a hideous brown colour. And it changes all of the shapes that have that applied to it. So we'll go Shrek Green. That's why magic purple is not a good name for a global colour. Because you could change the colour. And now it's not purple at all, is it? So don't call global colours by what colour they are. We'll call that... you can rename them. So we can go in and rename it. Just call that whatever. So magic brand colour. And that way, if the brand colour changes, you can change it and you don't need to bother renaming the global colour. But that is what a global colour does. You change, you apply it, and when you make changes, it updates automatically. Be aware that where you make the global colour from does not automatically update. So what I mean by that is, if we grab these and we just apply a colour, so it's not a global colour, if this is the colour we want, and we say, go make that global, add a global colour, we actually have to choose it. It comes through as black. But we'll choose it, and now we've got a global colour. So we'll add that. Right. That has actually updated them all, hasn't it? It's doing weird things. It shouldn't do that. Come on. Let's get these selected. Are you that magic brand colour? Or are you that colour? Oh, nothing's changing at all now. Crying out loud. No idea what it's doing at this point. Oh, that's green, that's better. But that's the principle of it. You make changes to a global colour, it ripples through everything that has that global colour applied to it. So if you look at our foodie branding here, the red in the middle would be a candidate to be a global colour. And that way, instead of having multiple versions of it, so if you look at my assets for Foodie Magazine, I've got 2 versions. I have this version that has this colour, and I have the red version. But I wouldn't need that if I'd made it a global colour. So that's what a global colour is. Do we have anything else?
Yeah. Tish says, I almost forgot about global colours. Do they work from document to document, file to file? I can't remember.
You heard the A lady going crazy.
Yeah.
Apologies if you heard the A lady going crazy. She's telling us we've just had 4 deliveries. You know what that means, don't you, Jammy? Unboxing Central. Right, do they work file to file? Let's have a look. Do they work from document to document, file to file? You can't remember. They exist within a file because global colours can only live in one place. The place they live is a document palette. So a document palette is per document. Obviously, what you can do is create a template with a global colour palette and then your global colour. So your document palette lives inside a template. So when you then create a file based on it, you automatically have access to your global colours via your document palette, but not automatically because you have different types of palette. So inside your palettes in here, we now have a document palette at the top. We have these palettes, which are application palettes. These exist only in Affinity. These palettes from the Affinity branding to the WebSafe are system palettes. If you're on Windows, don't worry. You don't have system palettes full stop. That is an OS level thing. And then you have your Pantones at the bottom. So there are 4 different types of palettes in here. And the document palette lives within a document, but it can live in a template, and any document created based on that template will have your global colour. But if you update the global colour in that template, it will not ripple through to all of the documents. You will, once you've created the document, have to edit each individual document. That is just how it works.
Okay. Ignacio says, on the Stat Calendar demo, is there a way to set a specific distance for the holiday names from the bottom of each table?
Yes, there is. So yes, you can do that. So in your Stat Calendar, when you set it up in here, I had that to the bottom. But this is actually part of something that a solution I've actually built that is genuine. And what I needed to do, rather than from the bottom, I was doing it from the top. But let's turn off some of these. What have we got? Holidays. Let's say these, you wanted a certain distance. So in here, you would, in the text of here, you would just add spacing to the bottom. Where do you want it from the bottom? So this is our text. You would do it in there. So if we did this, don't forget you've got your inset. So I'm on the highlights. I'm on the wrong table here. I think it's that one, isn't it? There we go. It's got it selected. Right. So I'm in the right place. It's the cell that this applies to. So there's the text, but remember the inset. So if I want this not quite as close to the bottom, I can start moving it up, but that's actually moving up the wrong thing. Hang on, that's the frame. I'm in the wrong place. Right, it's at the cell. So it's 3 millimeters at the bottom. If you wanted it closer to the bottom, you could. It's gone back to highlights. For crying out loud, do as you're told. Right. Oh, it's because it's locked. That was hoisted by my own petard there. Right. Bottom. So I had it 3 millimeters. You could have that wherever you want. What I did with one of them was it was aligned to the top, and then I had to push it down so the text started underneath the day number. But it's done via the cell. So that's why you've got your multiple tables over here, because if you were trying to fit this all into one cell in one table, you can't say to it, indent the top by 3 and the bottom by 3, and then the next bit of text, indent that by 10. You can't do that. So multiple tables allow you to have multiple cell settings for the placement of this, so you can place it wherever you like. Okay, what else we got?
Some Soul Hat says, I've experienced edit fill for a global colour being greyed out when I wanted to change it. Why might that be? This was in version 2, so may not be appropriate to ask today.
I don't think I've ever seen that. It could be that something was locked. But no, I've never seen that actually be locked to apply it, because it is in a per document basis. So no, I've never seen that, I'm afraid.
Okay, last question from Jamie, I think. Yeah, I'm just ticking the ones off. Yeah, will you ever make a Best of Mac Bites calendar using artwork from past shows?
Oh, we could do, couldn't we? Yeah. We could do that. I might do. Are you going to buy one and put it on the kitchen wall? Because if you do that, you definitely need one episode that I remember. So let me go and find that. If I can find the episode. Right. Oh, Graham was involved in that episode. The one I'm thinking of. Let's see if I can find it. I'm in a browser on another screen. Right. Yes, I think this one should have pride of place. If you're of a sensitive disposition, look away now. But if I did a calendar, that episode would be on it. Do you remember Graham? You've not seen it yet, have you?
I do know.
You know which one, don't you?
Yes.
This was Graham. We had a microphone fail and we played it on the show. And Graham did the most amazing rap to it. So that was an episode title. So would you put that on your kitchen wall, Jamie? Oh, he's saying he was just desperate for a question. That's not fair. You're self-serving. You are. You're definitely going to lose. Right. Okay. I think we're done with questions then, aren't we? And we've been going 2.5 hours. So we best head off. That means I get some food, but not before Lola's had a trot. And it's not been good weather, has it? And she's been a bit grumpy. So if it's not raining, then Lola's going out for a walk. Lucky girl, Lola. Right. Okay. We will be back. If you are in our season pass, we'll see you on Friday. If you're not, we'll see you on Sunday when we're looking at planner pages, but we're not data merging. But I noticed there was a comment from Tish who said she's glad that I didn't do that because her brain's exploding already. That was my thinking. Let's do that separately when you've mastered everything else. And then I'm not going to need to have to explain global colours, am I, and tables? You'll already have that. We'll be able to concentrate on the advanced things that happen in there, like the anchors and the hyperlinks. Because that's actually a lot of people find that quite difficult. So we'll be concentrating on that and not trying to squeeze tables and everything else in. That was the plan. There was all logic to this, you know. There was a total plan. It just sometimes doesn't feel like it when Affinity's doing things. But hey, it didn't crash. I've crashed it 3 times this week. And I haven't been doing anything tricky either. It just takes one on itself. But what I can say is the recovery seems to work, which is always good, isn't it? Yeah, it's good when the recovery works. Right, so we will head off right now and see you next time. So for the moment, I will say goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
And we'll both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.